Did you know the average American makes 35,000 decisions every day? Hello, and welcome to Torches, Yoga and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. Before we get into today's topic, mindful decision making, I am so excited, and I want to introduce to you to my new co-host, Misty Mindful. I have wanted a brain model for so long, but they are so pricey. But I think it must have been like school off season, it being summer, and Amazon Prime deals, and I was finally able to be like, okay, I can swing that. I can make that happen. And I got this beautiful model here. She's got her little dome and everything. But it is a 2-scale model, which means this is the actual size of our beautiful brains. And it's a wonderful piece that we can take apart to see the different regions. And they do separate a little bit, but it's a little tricky to get it back together. But I've been wanting one of these so that I could better demonstrate to you the areas of the brain that we're talking about. And maybe so we can see how close or how far apart they are, even though they're still working together. So I have Misty Mindful will be joining us for most of our mindful living practices videos, because that's where we're talking about our brain. All right, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Now, 35,000 decisions can seem like a lot, but really the bulk of it is the littlest things in our life. What are we going to wear? What are we going to eat? Water or juice? Other decisions shape our lives. Do I stay or go? Speak up or stay silent? Keep the peace or protect my peace? Each time we make a choice that doesn't serve our overall well-being, we lose trust in ourselves. All the decisions, big and small, add up and can take their toll. Without realizing it, we can make ourselves anxious, exhausted, and disconnected. Today, let's talk about making decisions with mindfulness. Some decisions are small and inconsequential, and some we may not even realize are important until we make the wrong ones. So, mindful decision making means we are consciously choosing with awareness of our purpose. We are making our decisions from a place of clarity instead of autopilot or impulse. When we take a mindful pause before making a decision, even if it seems like a small everyday choice, but when we take a pause, we can align with our choice, with our deeper motivations. And if you're like me, sometimes there is an overwhelming number of options that can just get frustrating and make for a very stressful situation. For me, mindful decision making isn't about knowing what's right. It's about feeling like I'm not abandoning myself in the process. I don't really like to label choices as wrong because often in the moment, we're making the best decisions we can with the awareness, the tools, and the experiences we have. It's not about punishment. And by that I mean, like, life isn't keeping score. It's not keeping track or trying to teach us a lesson. We're not being punished for making a less than ideal choice, but it's about our path becoming more tangled or heavier than it needs to be. Mindfulness helps us to tune into that deeper alignment so that the road forward, even when challenging, is more meaningful and it feels less like we're fighting ourselves at every turn. Sometimes it's only by walking the path that a certain choice creates that we learn what we needed in order to grow. So even so-called wrong choices serve a purpose. When our choices aren't aligned with our highest good or with an intention to support well-being for ourselves and others, they can lead to unnecessary struggle. Not every decision is life-changing, but the way we approach decisions becomes a pattern. Do we freeze? Do we people please? Do we overanalyze? Or just avoid it altogether? What if we met those moments with compassion and curiosity? And here's something I see a lot, especially in people who are thoughtful, capable, even spiritual. When a big decision is looming, maybe about family, work, or a relationship, it brings up anxiety, grief, and even dread. But instead of acknowledging those feelings, we try to logic our way through it. We think, I shouldn't feel like this. I just need to figure it out, push through. And we tell ourselves we'll deal with the feelings after the fact. We'll deal with them later. But more often than not, we don't. We don't come back to that. And that's not strength, that's conditioning. We've been taught that logic is more trustworthy than feeling, but feelings are data too. And when we ignore them, they don't just go away. They go underground, they go deeper, and they still influence our decisions anyway, just with less clarity and more confusion. Research in psychology actually shows that mindfulness improves our cognitive flexibility. And that's really just a clinical way of saying we are open to seeing more than just one solution. Studies show that mindfulness helps us to recognize when we're only sticking with something because we've already invested into it. Maybe it's our time, our money, our energy, but we're still going to stick with it, even if it's not actually right for us anymore. It also changes how our brain makes decisions. After mindfulness training, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain that helps us weigh options and make value-based decisions, it starts working more closely with the insula, which is tucked down in here, and it's the part of the brain that processes body awareness. So instead of just relying on habits or fear-based reactions, we start to include signals from the body. And that helps us make more balanced, intentional decisions. And just as importantly, mindfulness helps us to notice and name those internal biases that often cloud our judgment, like the fear of change, the urge to keep others comfortable, or that quiet belief that our needs should come last. When we bring those patterns into our awareness, they lose some of their power and we gain clarity. We don't have to already have mastered the 8 skills of mindfulness to be able to make a mindful decision. With my CLEAR framework process, we can bring mindfulness into our decision-making process to help us to align with what's going to support our overall well-being, even when things seem so uncertain. So let's walk through this process together. What does using the CLEAR method look like? C, come back to the body. When we're stuck in our heads, spinning through every possibility, we can lose touch with how the situation is landing in our body. So we start here, drop to your breath. Notice your feet, notice your belly. Ask, where do I feel this? That awareness alone can bring you out of reactivity and into presence. Then we have L, listen to our deeper values. Not just what do I want right now, but what matters to me in the long run. This can be tricky because when emotions are high, values will get buried under urgency or fear real quick. Take a breath and ask, what do I want to stand for in this decision? Or which choice is more in alignment with who I am becoming? And then we have E, explore our options gently. We don't want to rush or force clarity here. Just notice what the options are. Some might feel heavy or tight, and others might feel expansive, even if they're a little scary. Let yourself imagine the path of each one for a moment and observe what arises in your body, not just your mind. Sometimes clarity doesn't shout, it whispers. And then we have A, ask yourself what choice supports my peace. Not just temporary relief, but true peace. And this doesn't always mean comfort. Sometimes the right choice is uncomfortable, but it's still the one that brings you into integrity. Ask, what would the most grounded, loving version of me choose right now? And finally, we have R, respond, don't react. Give yourself permission to move forward from a place of calm and care. You don't have to explain your choice to everyone. You don't even have to have all the details figured out. You just have to trust the version of you who made the choice from awareness and intention. Using this framework in your decision making doesn't mean that the big decisions are just suddenly going to be easier, but it does invite self-trust and create space for clarity. And when we support our inner clarity with practical, brain-friendly habits, we give ourselves even more of an edge. Because the truth is, our brains can be trained to make better decisions. Small, everyday practices have been shown to improve how we respond under pressure, how flexible our thinking is, and even how deeply we're able to focus and evaluate complex situations. And of course, I have some neuroscience-backed habits that support mindful decision making so that when the time does come for us to make those big life decisions, we can be ready to implement the clear method to work through it. A recent study published found that just 6 to 10 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise can improve your memory and significantly improve higher level cognitive skills like organization, prioritization, and planning. The vigorous exercise can be anything from a brisk walk, a light jog, weightlifting, or dancing like no one is watching to 2 or 3 of your favorite songs. These mental boosts were found to last for a few hours after the vigorous activity. And if you're ready for the long-term benefits, a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that participants who walked briskly for 40 minutes 3 times a week increased the volume of their hippocampus. And the hippocampus plays a huge role in memory, especially remembering past experiences and emotional patterns. It also helps in processing emotions and even supports how we understand social dynamics, like who we feel comfortable with, who we feel safer when we're around them, what kind of relationships nourish us versus which ones drain us. When we practice mindfulness, studies show that we actually protect and strengthen our hippocampus, which means we're not just getting calmer, we're giving ourselves a stronger, wiser filter for making choices that support our emotional well-being and relationships. The opposite was also found to be true. Not getting enough exercise, not getting even just 5 to 10 minutes a day, has a negative impact on our mental abilities. If you caught my video on skill number 4, energy, you may remember that our brain uses 320 calories a day and that we don't just have an endless supply of mental energy. And decision fatigue is very real. The more decisions we have to make, the harder it will be for us to make smart, mindful decisions. And neurobiology backs that feeling up. Difficult mental tasks lead to a buildup of glutamate. This is an amino acid that works as a neurotransmitter in our brains, basically a little messenger taking information back and forth. But you know how our computer browsers, our internet browsers, they can become slowed down because the cache builds up and we have to go into our settings, clear out the cache. Same thing for our brains and glutamate. And when there is a buildup of this glutamate, it will negatively impact our lateral prefrontal cortex, this upper front region. And that part, that's the part that does our decision making. So the best way we can combat this decision fatigue impacting our choices, according to several different studies, is to leave decision making for either at the start of your day or after a meal break, where you actually give yourself a few minutes to like decompress and wind down. A working lunch or working dinner, that doesn't count. Whenever possible, set yourself up for success by timing it so that you can tackle the big tasks that require focus or difficult decision making earlier in your day. And another practical way we can incorporate mindfulness into our decision making is by eliminating the extremes. Our brains struggle when there are too many options. Are you ever like borderline hangry? When the hunger starts to negatively impact your mood? When you go to a place and it takes 20 decisions just to place your order, and that's when you've already made a decision and narrowed it down on what to eat from the 500 item menu. Or this might just be me, but when I'm already struggling to decide on something and someone starts listing off all the options, before I can even fully consider one, they're chiming in with another one. Like, or do you want to go here? What about here? What about this? Blah, blah, blah. By the third or fourth option, I'm done. I'm out. Hunger will be gone. Whatever the original agenda was, I don't even want it anymore. But when we align our decisions with our deeper motivations and goals, that'll help to narrow down that 100 options that are out there to maybe just a handful that are good choices for us to make for ourselves. For instance, one of my personal choices is to not eat McDonald's. And it's not just because their french fries have 19 different ingredients, but also because the company has been a heavy lobbyist against employee rights. Oh, and did you know that the founder of Papa John's allegedly said that he would cut employee hours just to be able to avoid having to provide health insurance? And more importantly, and not allegedly, remember when our NFL players were protesting the anthem and taking a knee? Well, Papa John felt it was his place to criticize these men and use the N word. I'm not buying your pizza anymore. I have a whole list of these, really. I could go on, haven't had Chick-fil-A in years. But when I'm faced with an overwhelming amount of options, if I consider a little bit deeper than for instance, I'm hungry, I can narrow down the options and make a choice that I feel good about. Mindfulness doesn't give us a perfect answer. It gives us space to feel and space to see more clearly. And that's the power of mindful decision making. It's not about certainty, it's about alignment. It's about creating just enough space between impulse and actions to remember who we are and who we're becoming. So, whether you're deciding what to make for dinner or whether to completely uproot your life, you deserve to make choices that honor your well being. You deserve to feel like you're not abandoning yourself in the process. And you deserve to move forward from a place of clarity and self trust. And when that trust feels far away, come back to your breath, come back to your body. Notice your feet, notice your belly, notice your shoulders. Come back to this moment because this moment is where your power lives. All right, that is all I have for you today. If this was helpful to you, or if you're sitting with a decision in your heart, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Maybe take some quiet time after this video just to check in with yourself. You're doing better than you think, and you are not alone. If you're ready to work one-on-one with me as your coach, my email is in the description below. And if you know someone who is struggling with making a difficult decision, share this with them. Let them know they aren't alone either. All right, friend, make sure you come back next week where I will take you through a guided meditation on decision making. I will show you what it means to spend time with a decision, to feel it out, to meditate on a decision. Thank you so much for sharing a piece of your day with me, friends. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I will see you soon.